the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. As we gather here in the official territory of Treaty 6, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibility to protect and honor all of life. Next on our agenda is proclamations. We have 3 this evening, which I'll go through in order. Municipal Clerks Week. Isn't that a national holiday, Madam Clerk? Okay, it's only a week. Okay, well, April 3rd to May 6, 2023. Whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government that exists throughout the world, and whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of the neutrality and impartiality regarding equal service to all, and whereas a professional municipal clerk serves as the information center and function of local government and community, and whereas a professional municipal clerk continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas the most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishment of the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danlick, do hereby proclaim April 30th to May 6, 2023 as Municipal Clerks Week in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 25th of April, 2023 here in Beaumont. Should be a national holiday, shouldn't it, Madam Clerk? I notice a motion from someone down the road. North American Occupational Safety and Health Week, May 1st to 6, 2023. Whereas May 1st to 6 has been designated as this year's North American Occupational Safety and Health Week, and whereas NOSH Week, N-A-O-S-H, that's the acronym, was first launched in June 1997, marked by an agreement between Canada, United States, and Mexico, and symbolizes joint venture, cooperation, and commitment to common goals shared by all occupational health and safety workers. And whereas the goal of Safety and Health Week is to focus on employers, employees, and partners, and the public on the importance of preventing injury and illness in the workplace, at home, in the community. And whereas the City of Beaumont recognizes May 1st to 6 as the North American Occupational Safety and Health Week to bring awareness for the need to establish a healthy and safe workplace for all. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danlick, do hereby proclaim May 1st to 6, 2023 as North American Occupational Safety and Health Week, the City of Beaumont, dated April 25th, 2023. And lastly, Economic Development Week, May 8th to 12th of 2023. Whereas the International Economic Development Council is the largest professional or economic development organization dedicated to serving economic developers. And whereas for almost 50 years, Economic Developers Alberta has been Alberta's leading economic development network, committed to advancing economic development profession by providing resources, professional development, and networking opportunities. And whereas economic developers promote economic well-being and the quality of life for their communities by creating, retaining, and expanding jobs that facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas economic developers stimulate and incubate entrepreneurism in order to help establish the next generation of new businesses, which is the hallmark of Alberta's economy. And whereas economic developers are engaged in a wide variety of settings, including rural and urban, local, state, provincial, and federal governments, public-private partnerships, chambers of commerce, universities, and a variety of other institutions. And whereas economic developers attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, and improve the quality of life in their regions. And whereas economic developers work in the City of Beaumont. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danlick, do hereby proclaim May 8th to 12th, 2023 as Economic Development Week in the City of Beaumont, dated April 25th, 2023. Give me 1 second. That was a lot. Before I begin, I want to let you know that Councillor Barnhart is on vacation, hopefully enjoying herself a nice little vacation time, and Councillor McCoff-Swain and Councillor McCook are remotely tuning in this evening. Are they both online? They are. Thank you very much. Just so I know when I call for the vote next, I know they're able to hear. Next, our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, any changes to our agenda this evening? There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have one addition to the agenda. It's the presentation from the Association of Alberta Municipalities, and that will be shared with council very soon.
Okay, thank you. The only change we have is that one change. Okay, is there a member of council willing to move the adoption of the agenda as presented? Councilor Miller, Ashley?
Sure, I can move that the April 25th, 2023 council agenda be adopted with the addition of attachment 1 to item 7.1, Association of Alberta Municipalities.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? See none, council, would you please vote on the motion? Councilor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Councilor McCosk-Swain?
In favor.
Thank you very much. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the open forum. Madam Clerk, any additions to open forum this evening?
Mr. Mayor, no, we do not have any presentations for open forum.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the adoption of the minutes. Oh, sorry, the consent agenda. I forgot to pass on the consent agenda. Would you please put the consent agenda on the screen, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Member of council willing to move the consent agenda as presented? Councilman Newkirk? Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd be pleased to move the consent agenda as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion on the consent agenda. Seeing none. Council, would you please vote on the consent agenda before you? Councilor Monkhoff-Swain, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Councilor McCook?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously, council. Next on our agenda is we have a public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you please walk us through the public hearing procedure, please, for this evening?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. So welcome everyone to the April 25th, 2023 City of Beaumont public hearing. Public hearings are an opportunity to speak to council on advertised bylaws or certain resolutions. I'm just going to take a few moments to provide an overview of the public hearing procedures as set out in the city's meeting procedures bylaw. We have been accepting written submissions in the weeks preceding the public hearing. The deadline for written submissions was noon on April 24th. Any written submissions that have been received by the deadline have been provided to council in advance of the hearing for their review and are also available for public inspection on the agenda. Registration to present at the public hearing by electronic means was required by 4 p.m. on April 24th. Registration to present in person is permitted in advance of the public hearing or physically at the public hearing. Mr. Mayor, we have one registered speaker for today's public hearing. The procedure for the public hearing is as follows. Administration will first make a presentation on the bylaw, and then council will be invited to ask questions of clarification. Next, members of the public who are registered to speak or those who are present here will be invited to make their respective presentations. If anyone here has not yet registered to speak, please raise your hand or let us know, and we will get your name and add you to the list of presenters. Council will hear first from those who are in favor of the bylaw, then those opposed, and then anyone else who wishes to be heard. Presenters typically have up to 5 minutes to present unless they are an applicant, in which case they have 10, and then council will have an opportunity to ask questions of clarification. When you are presenting and it is your turn, please ensure that the microphone and audio is working and state your full name for the record before beginning your presentation. Your time will start when your presentation starts, and we will provide you a warning when you have 1 minute remaining, and again, when you are at the end of your allotted time. Again, for any presenters, please remain at the mic or on the line once you are done presenting, since council may have questions following the presentation. Once council has heard all the presentations, the public hearing will be closed and the regular session of council will reconvene so that council may make a decision on the matter. On a final note, the city's public hearings are recorded as a webcast, which will be made available for viewing on the city's public website. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There's one point of clarification for myself. Do I declare the public hearing open after Johannes presents on administration or before?
Before, please.
Before. All right, with that, I'll declare the public hearing open. And with that, we'll start off with the administration presentation. Mr. Wong, you have the floor, sir. Your mic is on.
Yep. Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Johannes Wong, and I'm the manager of Long Range Planning. I want to take a few minutes to give an overview of the ASP amendment this bylaw that is proposed for the first, second, and third reading this evening and offer an opportunity to ask any questions. The subject lands for this proposal are in the north half of the Lakeville neighborhood, bounded by Beauval, Lakeville, Beaumont Lakes to the west, Triumph Estates to the north, Range Road 241 to the east, and Highway 625 to the south, as shown on attachment 1 of the package. Bylaw 1028-23 proposes to update the name of the area structure plan from Lakeville Area Structure Plan to Azure Lakeville Area Structure Plan, as shown on attachment 4, Schedule A. The change will result in the neighborhood located in the north portion of the area structure plan being renamed to Azure Neighborhood, and the proposed amendment requires some text amendments throughout the plan document to reflect the name change when needed. The red line ASP documents to review all text amendment changes are attached in attachment 5. The overall unit density remains unchanged at 36 dwelling units per net residential hectare, which meets the requirement of the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Growth Plan and does not require to refer under the Regional Evaluation Framework. The proposed amendment was circulated to nearby landowners and relevant technical agencies throughout the city's usual circulation process. No responses were received from landowners nor from any agencies on the circulation. If approved, the proposed amendment will formally recognize the north portion of the quarter section as Azure Neighborhood, and the south portion will remain as Lakeville Neighborhood. The proposed amendment does not impact or change any of the land use concept and policies in the ASP as previously approved through bylaw 1015-22. Administration supports the proposed amendment, and I'm pleased to answer any questions that council has.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Appreciate the presentation. I'm just going to my notes here for a moment. Thank you. Is a member of council looking to ask any questions or clarification on the proposed bylaw change with Mr. Wong? Councilman Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure if this question is best posed to administration or the proponent, but it's a lot of work here to put a name change forward. What's the reason or the catalyst for this amendment to be in front of us tonight? Thank you.
I will try to answer this question, and Dustin, who's the applicant, will be able to talk a little bit more. So the applicant came forward with a proposed name change because the name Lakeville does not really reflect the area, because there is only the stormwater management facility that are waterfront, and indeed they came with a different name and then later on using the same meaning to become Azure and to reflect that as the blue skies, in the neighborhood. So that is the reason why they want to propose a change. And Dustin, you want to add a little bit of the feedback?
Give me a second to get the right mic there. Okay, hang on a second. Now you're on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Please state your name first, Dustin.
Dustin Berube with Valley Developments. Thank you, Your Honor and Councillor. So with this proposed amendment, we felt that it met a little bit more of our branding and marketing for the neighborhood as a whole versus the previous name of Lakeview. With that amendment, though, it also allows us to continue with the wayfinding and branding of our neighborhood as a whole throughout the external parts of our neighborhood. So that would include wayfinding for new buyers or residents to find our neighborhood, as well as entry features would be able to be branded, the brand and marketing that we would like to present for our neighborhood. So hence the effort. We feel that it would match more of the product that we want to bring to Beaumont and the level community, just matching it all together, tying it all together.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from members of council this evening for administration's presentation? I'm seeing none. We'll begin then with the members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the bylaw or the proponent who wishes maybe to speak. Dustin, would you care to make any comments in addition? No, you're okay. I was gonna give you a little job about the flames, you give a little jab at the mic, but you missed the being blinded by the orange here, so. Okay, I'll take that. Ms. Majia, you have a comment?
Oh, I was just going to let you know that we don't have any other registered speakers other than the applicant for this
Okay.
evening's public hearing.
Perfect. I probably should ask nonetheless, anybody who wants to speak in opposition to the bylaw, seeing none, anybody who feels deemed to be affected by the bylaw, if you wish to speak. I'm seeing none here as well too. So with that, I will ask any final comments from administration on this proposed bylaw. Johannes, Mr. Wong, do you have anything you need to add to the discussion?
No, Your Worship, I think the presentation covers the gist of the applications, and in conclusion, the administration want to reiterate, we support the proposed amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Appreciate that. Seeing no further comments from administration or from council, I'll declare the public hearing closed. At this point, we'll move on to the recommendation. Is a member of council willing to make the recommendation that we move to second reading? Councilor Tessie, as soon as it's on the screen, you can proceed, Councilor, when it's on the screen.
First reading. We
Oh, I'm sorry.
require all three readings this evening.
Oh, sorry.
If council is willing, I can put that up on the screen in a moment.
Yes, thank you. My mistake.
No worries.
I forgot it
You
was.
just wanted to make sure I was earning my keep.
Well, it is clerk's week, so. you know,
That's
I have to
right.
Stay on top of things. All right, with that, I will withdraw my first comment and ask as a member of council willing to move first reading. Councilor Tessie, do you wish to proceed?
Yes, Mayor. I'll move that bylaw 1028-23 Lakeview Area Structure Plan Amendment, first, second, and third reading.
Sorry, we have to do them individually.
Oh, that's all good. Lakeview Area Structure Plan Amendment be given first reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate that. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor, I will put the vote up now. Councilor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Councilor McCoff Swain?
In favor.
You. That carries unanimously. Member of council willing to move second reading this evening from what's in front of us on the screen. Councilor Miller?
Sure. I move that bylaw 1028-23 be given second reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Council, would you please vote on second reading of the bylaw? Councilor McCoff Swain, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Councilor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Council, that carries unanimously as well. Now, I believe we can move on to third reading, Madam Clerk, I believe this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We just need to do consideration of third, and then we can move on to third
Okay.
reading. For consideration, we need a unanimous vote.
Okay. Consideration for a third reading, council. Concern, questions on third reading? Okay, we'll take a vote on consensus to move to third reading. Councilor McCoff Swain, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councilor Cook?
In favor.
Sorry, I'm having one of those days, I guess, procedurally. Oh, yeah. Well, that was for consensus, right? I thought that's just consideration. Okay, sorry. You know what? Let's do that, shall we? I'll move consideration. I think I've got other things in my mind today. Sorry, procedures kind of go out the window. All these suits in front of me just got me a little bit rattled. On these friendly suits, of course, nonetheless. Yes, so where is it there? Yes, I will move that bylaw 1028-23 be considered for third reading. I apologize, council, for my procedural errors this evening, but we'll move on. Discussion on the motion for consideration for third reading. Seeing none, council, would you please now vote on consideration for third reading? Councilor McCoff Swain, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councilor McCook?
In favor.
Council carries unanimously. Now, I've got it right now. There's only one more motion to make, right? Motion for third reading, please. Councilor Tessier.
I'll move that bylaw 1028-23 be given third reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion on the motion from members of council. I'm seeing none on the screen either. So with that, we will move to third reading. Council, will you please vote on third reading? Councilor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Councilor Monkoff Swain.
In-
Thank you. Council carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Dustin, for coming in this evening. We much appreciate that. And we move on to our agenda. Next item on our agenda this evening is register presentations of municipalities. Mayor Gagnon, would you please join us at the table? And I'll get your mic turned on here. And we are good to go. Welcome to council.
Thank you very much. I'm glad I'm not the only one nervous. It's not very often I get to sit on this side of council. Good evening, your worship and council. My name is Tyler Gagnon, and I'm one of the directors and vice president for cities under 500,000 with Alberta municipalities. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today and share a little bit about what Alberta municipalities has been working on and a few of the advocacy wins that we've achieved over the last little while. Once we're done, I'd like to hear from you, or we'd like to hear from you. Comments, questions, or concerns for Alberta municipalities in either advocacy or with our business services. I'll start off with the LGFF funding formula. So both Alberta municipalities and RMA met initially to see if we could come up with a formula that worked for both associations that we could present to the provincial government. We were unable to do that. So we both submitted two different proposals to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Since that time, she has brought back both associations to talk about how those allocations are going to look. Obviously, nothing's going to be done prior to the provincial election, but we will keep you updated on that as we work through it. We had asked for a change to the 50% or 50% growth factor. And as the province's revenue grows, so does the funding to municipalities at a 1-to-1, which we were able to get. MSI operating doubled from $30 million to $60 million. And Alberta municipalities also asked for a freeze of the provincial election tax requisition, which we were able to secure. Now, speaking about the upcoming election, we're going to be focusing on three of the priorities on behalf of municipalities: community safety, community investment, and community healthcare. We'd like for all municipalities to be as active as they can, getting their residents involved in this election and making sure that their concerns are heard by our provincial government and the other parties running. So we're going to be super active with the election to ensure that all voters get all of the information that they need before they vote. We also send out a newsletter through email called The Weekly. It's a great resource for what we're working on, upcoming webinars or conferences, our elected officials education program or EOEP, and just general information. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I will welcome up my business development team to talk about business services that helps pay for all of the advocacy that we're able to do on behalf of municipalities. And then we'll open it up to questions from council if that pleases his worship. Thank you.
Awesome. Please join us at the table. Great.
Is this still on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Riley. I'm a regional manager at Alberta Municipalities. I've been there for 11 years. I worked closely with Sandy and Maureen for some of those years. And before that with Sam for when I was at EPCOR. So it's a small world. But thank you for giving us some time on the agenda just to let us go over some of the business services that we have. And if you just could move to the first slide. Great, thank you. So Alberta Municipalities is always listening and seeking new ways to provide you with greater value so we can support your hard work to build thriving communities. We're moving to a new regional approach which will result in a single point of contact for all your business needs. Current directors of business development, I'm one of them. We've just made this change really recently, so I've got to remember I'm now regional manager, not director of client development, but regional manager. And we've split the province of Alberta into 4 areas with 1 regional manager in each area. And I'm happy to be in the central Alberta where Beaumont is. That's why I'm here. Just move to the next slide, I think it's covered. So So our values of excellence, member focus, accountability, collaboration, and community. So these values are really important part of our identity. Member focus is particularly important these days, of course. Next slide, please. Let's see. So at Alberta Municipalities, we've developed a number of products and services over the years, including pension plans, general insurance coverages, electricity and natural gas, and quite recently, cybersecurity and managed IT services. And these are really created to meet the needs of municipalities. Next slide, please. So our approach to working with you is a very holistic one. We work hard to negotiate competitive pricing through partnerships with industry leaders. We tailor services to meet your needs based on listening and ongoing feedback. And we view things from a long-term lens of stability and growth, as ultimately the goal we share with municipalities is building strong Alberta communities. So we do serve communities, not shareholders, and we help build communities. And we are involved with lots and lots of not-for-profits, including several in Beaumont, including Beaumont Municipal Library, Beaumont Curling Club, and Beaumont 50+ Club, as well as several others. Oh, it's me. Oh, great. We got to that page yet. I can probably ad-lib this one. So as I mentioned earlier, so I'm looking after Central Alberta. I've been with Alberta Municipalities for 11 years, always in the business development area. And one of the reasons we made this change is so our team can get to know better, much better, the communities, municipalities, and not-for-profits in the areas that we look after. So hopefully that is much more beneficial than our earlier approach with respect to more moving things forward much quicker, I hope. Next slide, please. So these are all the services we do, and we really come about getting these services based on input from municipalities. So most of these services, if not all of them, have been asked for by municipalities, and I'd be happy to talk to Mike and others later about some of the ones you don't have. And I hope to have got that through that in 3 minutes, so that's what I was told. So I didn't read all my notes, but there might be some questions, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming. Much appreciated. Always good to see our friends from Alberta Municipalities. It's fun of us once a year, like you always do, to come and let us know what's happening. Much appreciated. Any comments or questions from members of council or presenters this evening from Alberta Municipalities? Seeing none from council and present. Oh, Councillor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor.
Sure. Mayor Gandam, you spoke of the provincial election and the tools that residents might need from us in order to make an informed decision. What does that look like from your standpoint on how you guys would play into that?
So as I spoke about the priorities that municipalities have brought forward to us, and what we're going to be doing to try to get the answers from those parties in the election to best suit all of our municipalities, all of our residents. So making sure that the questions that are asked on behalf of somebody from Beaumont or Wetaskiwin or Red Deer or Medicine Hat are having the opportunity to get their maybe concerns or their questions asked or expressed to the parties.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you so much for that answer. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Swain, Sam, you have a comment or question?
Yeah, just very briefly, I just like to apologize first for not being there in person, and good to see my friend Andrew here. Sorry, hello there. And yeah, just thank you for all the work that you guys are continuing to do. I know it's really helpful. And Tyler, you talked about all the advocacy efforts that come through, and really appreciate you highlighting them. Often it's time most folks don't quite understand or see the value in all the work that you've done. And so especially with some of those funding formulas that you guys have pushed really hard on, that's recognized, and certainly our budget appreciated it. So keep up the great work, and a big thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, gentlemen, again, thank you for coming. As Sam mentioned, great work you guys are doing on a regular basis for us and much appreciated. It's a lot of work looking after municipalities. It's like herding cats sometimes. I'm sure there's only, 325 municipalities in Alberta, a large and small. So there's quite a few that you guys are involved with. So much appreciated. Thank you very much for coming.
Mayor Daniluk has my contact information if something comes up later on, or if you have questions or comments that you'd like to reach out to me, by all means, please do.
I look forward to
Thank you
it.
for the opportunity.
Thanks for coming, guys. Much appreciated. Moving on with our agenda this evening, we now have a business,
To accept the presentation for information.
sorry. I didn't think we needed that. Okay, appreciate that. Thanks again, guys. Is there a motion to, Councilman Newkirk, you see on the screen, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd move that the April 25th, 2023 Association of Alberta Municipalities presentation be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, would you please vote based on the motion before you? Councillor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor McGough-Swain?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously, Council. Thank you very much. Moving on our agenda this evening, we are now into 8.1 business items, 2022 audited consolidated financial statements. Mr. Blanco, I believe you'll be presenting, and we have a guest presenter with us as well, too. Are you presenting yourself first? Yep, your mic is on.
Good evening to the mayor and council. I'm Curtis DeBlanco, the Director of Finance for the city. Before council this evening is a report seeking approval of the 2022 audited financial statements. With us this evening is Ashley Zutz from Grant Thornton, who are the city's municipal auditors. There's two attachments to the report. The first are the statements themselves, and the second is Grant Thornton's report to city council. As far as process, what I'll do is I'll let Ms. Zutz walk through their report first, and I'd suggest council ask any questions of the presenter first. And then after, I'll present administration's report on the statements and the financial results for the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Zutz, welcome to City Council this evening. We look forward to your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank
Your
you.
microphone is on.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to meet everyone this year. Just sad everyone left for what I think is the most exciting part of the meeting tonight, but I could be a little. In front of you today is our year-end report. We've combined both the audit strategy and the results today. So we'll go through this at a high level. I've assumed everyone has read it. If any questions come up, happy to answer those as they come about. So if we go to the executive summary page, one more. So we are required to meet here today to talk about both the audit and strategy, or about the audit, both the strategy and the results. So from a high level, we are engaged to provide an audit opinion on the year-end consolidated financial statements. That will be dated today, so long as council approves the financial statements. That's the trigger of our audit report. This report is dated April 19th. So you will notice the status of our audit. Some of those items have since been resolved. Of those 4 or 5 items, if I'm counting correctly, 4 of those stay because they're all triggered to today's date. So there's a flurry of activity that's going to happen once council approves the financial statements, some forms and items that we just need to update up to today's date and management to sign there. So our audit approach, we do take a risk-based approach. We come out and do some audit planning, obtain understanding of changes during the year, both from a financial and operational side of things, and determine an audit approach. We set a year-end materiality, which was roughly 1.4 million in the current year, very similar to what we've seen in prior years. And using that risk-based approach, we can tell you that we don't look at things just over that threshold. We do look at things under as well. We do take that approach, or else Jessie and her team, we'd still be here blue in the face looking at every invoice possible. Next page is CAS 315. So for the first time, if you go up one more page, sorry, back 2. There we go. So the first time in a while, we had a revision to the auditing standards, which is something that we haven't seen for a while, but this really required us to gain additional understanding on certain risks, primarily focused on IT related items. So there's a lot more understanding and requirements for us to meet that standard in the amendment this year. So we met with both finance department and on the IT side to really understand and IT controls related to financial systems and other items around there. So no information or nothing to report from that, but just something that is different in the current year. Audit risks and results. So significant risks that we identified during the year during our planning. So fraud risk from revenue recognition. This is a presumed risk under all entities. It's very uncommon. So under the auditing standards, the fraud risk of revenue recognition is for everybody. So primarily for the city, it relates to government transfers, both those that are for capital and operating, if they have restrictions on the use of the funds, just making sure that the city is recording it in an appropriate manner. So on the right-hand side of this column are some very specific procedures that we've done. I won't go into detail there, but no items were identified in relation to revenue recognition. Management override, again, this is a presumed risk of fraud that management can override controls from there. So the director of finance, we note they have the ability to post journal entries in the accounting systems. So anytime that exists, we do some additional procedures around there. Again, those are highlighted on the right-hand side, and no issues were identified as a result of our year-end audit procedures around that. Next page is accounting estimates. We take additional look at these. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily agree to an invoice, so it's not black or white. So when there is judgment involved, we spend some more time around those. So some significant estimates included in the statements relate to accounts receivable and if it's collectible. We talk about the contaminated site liability. We know it was remediated and fixed a while ago, but making sure management's not aware that there's any new ones that they need to account for in the current year, and any contingent liabilities that they need to consider as well. So right-hand side, again, we do list some specific procedures that we do. And then we also inquire of management around fraud and illegal acts, and we are not aware or brought to attention of any fraud or suspected fraud during the year or non-compliance with any laws or regulations as well. Next page, page 5. Very skinny page, but a very good page. So happy to report it was a very clean audit once again. Looking back, this is very similar. So kudos to your finance team for coming here today. We have no adjustments or unadjusted items to bring forward. Any comments that we had on the financial statements, management reviewed and incorporated where appropriate. So kudos to everybody there. Reportable matters. So in addition to looking at some testing, we are required to look at internal controls that exist, especially around the financial reporting processes. And if there was any deficiencies identified, we'd be required to bring that to management and to council today. We did not identify anything that would be deemed a reportable observation. I can attest to the fact that bringing Jesse along in has only strengthened internal controls from there, being able to segregate some of those duties and just add an extra layer of that review control. So we definitely want to bring that forward as well. So hot topic of many organizations is cybersecurity. So it's often something that is often talked about, and then we talk about it, and then until something really bad happens or it comes up in the news is when it comes hot of mind as well. So it is something to bring front of mind. I do know I've been working with the finance department and IT just for some guidance around there, and we're working together towards that. So it is something that is top of mind for the finance department. They're ever evolving cybersecurity attacks, what we hear in different organizations and what is happening. We like to bring that forward just so everybody is aware and to keep that top of mind. Independence. So annually, we do confirm that we are independent. We have included in the appendix our annual independence letter. So anything that may appear to be that could pose a threat to our independence, we've brought forward, but nothing that is concerned. So we are independent of the city as of today. The rest of the report is some lovely appendices. So in terms of the next is a technical highlight. So we have included some very light reading if you're having trouble falling asleep in there about accounting highlights. So I do want to note there is one significant accounting change that will impact the city of Beaumont next year for their next year financial statements. And that is under the accounting standards, the requirement to record asset retirement obligations. So that is new for anyone, for cities and school boards. They will see that. I've recently worked through one with a similar organization, and it is very material. So the easiest thing to think about is if you have a very old building that you're still using and it may have asbestos in it, when you go to demolish or sell that building, you would be required to remediate that asbestos before you could go forward. So that would create a liability to the city of Beaumont. So I know the finance team is working through that right now, and we will be getting ahead of that sooner than later and not waiting kind of to the year-end audit there, because it does have a large impact to potential financial statements. Just to let you know, the impact is between assets and liabilities. There's no necessarily net income impact there. It's very minimal, but it will require a heavy lift, both on the finance team and from an audit side as well. Assurance, we've provided some more guidance on the new amended standard that was applicable for the current year. Appendix A is more about our approach and roles and responsibilities. And then the remainder of the appendix, I believe Appendix B, is a copy of our independent auditor's report that will be attached to the financial statements. It's a lot of words to say it is a clean, audit plan and risks. So again, highlighting some additional risks and procedures. Sorry, that's my bad, missed that. From there. So it's Appendix C that is a copy of our audit report for us. So this is a clean audit opinion. It's a basis of accounting. So again, another clean audit opinion. It will be dated to date, today's date, so long as financial statements are approved by City Council. And the remainder, I will not, it's a high level page flip with the management representation letter that management will sign and send to us as well. I will leave it if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Lutz. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Any questions for our presenter? Councillor Van Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor, followed by Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you. Just back to your recent statements around the ARO obligations. Has there been any direction on how the ARO is to be handled? Is there going to be, bonds required or any other financial mechanism, or what does that look like?
So in terms of being able to finance that, it's something that could be settled in roughly 50 years. So there's no guidance that I'm aware of from an accounting side of how to look at that in terms of financing that and making that aware. We just really look at it from a financial reporting impact in that on the financial statement. So no technical guidance from the accounting side of how that's financed going forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Miller. Ashley?
Mine was, thank you so much
You're
for your
welcome.
presentation. Mine was more so a comment to administration, Curtis, Mike, and the team, just about, I know the nature of this work is probably, very convoluted. And thank you for just being thorough and diligent and providing us with a kudos report from the auditor. So kudos is due where it's due. And thank you guys very much. Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Seeing no further questions for Ms. Zutz. Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate that. Would you mind staying on just for a moment or two in case you have any additional questions? Mr. Blanco, do you wish to do any follow-up comments on the presentation?
Not too much for follow-up comments on the presentation. Once again, I'll reiterate that Jesse or Ms. McDonald rather, we'll use formality here, has added a huge resource to the finance team, and the audit opinion and the year-end process overall has improved substantially. So thanks to her as well.
Yeah, great work, Ms. McDonald. Much appreciated, and thanks for coming on board. Much appreciated.
Beyond that, I'll just do the administration's presentation of the financial statements.
Sure, and then we'll go to the motions on the report itself, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Blanco, please proceed.
Thank you. So most of the information in the body of the report was actually presented at March 14th, which it hasn't changed substantially. So I will go through fairly quickly the financial results. Much of this is not news to council, as I just said. Regardless, we'll look at how it relates to the audited financial statements. One caveat I'll provide is public sector accounting standards require these statements to be presented in a certain manner, and they have a look and feel that's slightly different than the quarterly financial reports that come to council. Those are more focused on the presentation of budget to actual results. So if you're looking at the statements, once again, if you can't sleep at night, that's why they look slightly different than the reports we bring on a quarterly basis. So with that, if we look specifically at the municipal operating budget on revenue, the city realized approximately 1.1 million in excess of budget for revenue. And these are things from sales and user charges at the BSRC, as well as increased development activity, and then some additional government transfers and investment income. Looking at operating expenses, the city's operations exceeded budget by 1.9 million. These increased expenditures were driven largely from inflation and inflationary pressures. However, some specific drivers include items such as contracted services at the rec center, fuel costs, janitorial, repairs and maintenance at city facilities. So that overall number of 1.9 million contributes to what we'll talk about as a operating deficit. The next section with respect to transfers, the statements reflect draws from the city's reserves of 1.4 million, and has also, the city's operations budget has transferred $2.7 million to reserves, as well as there were some budgeted transfers that were made just as budgeted, and these reflect full cost of both capital projects and utility programs. And the amount of that was 1.2 million. So when totaled, the effect of these various transfers have a net impact on the deficit of approximately $100,000. So all in, at completion of the year-end audit, the city realized an operating deficit on its municipal or tax levy funded operations of $876,000. And this is equivalent to 1.8% of the operating budget. Next on the utility budget, utility revenue, once again, as discussed at the March 14th council meeting, came in at approximately 500,000 below budget. And this is due to water and wastewater consumption lower than forecast. As work from home policies and online requirements kind of returned to normal over the course of the year, that resulted in less people being in their homes and has resulted in this 5% decrease in water consumption. The decrease in revenue has substantially been offset by reduced costs for purchasing these, both purchase of water and processing of wastewater from the respective commissions. So what we see is overall on the utility operations budget, a net surplus of 23,000, and this is after the budgeted transfer of 1.2 million. Next on capital, at the end of the year, 10.4 million of the approved budget had been spent, and this is approximately 63%. 4.7 million or 29% has already been carried forward to the 2023 budget year, and 1 million or approximately 6% represents unspent amounts, and that would be savings or cancellations on various projects. Not typically reported, but something we report as part of the financial statements is the amount of developer contributed assets. So that amount came in at 5.4 million. And those get included, they don't get included in the city's capital budget, but they do represent non-cash transactions that are shown in the financial statements. So all in, the city has added 15.8 million in tangible capital assets in the year. Really quickly on reserves, the municipal operating budget required reserve draws totaling 1.4 million. From a capital perspective, 4.4 were required to fund capital projects, and approximately 600,000 of pay-as-you-go funding was utilized. No reserve draw was required within the utility budget, and included within total draws of 6.6 million was the reallocation of the city's library building reserve, which is around 200,000 to the library's operating and capital reserves respectively. Once again, the city transferred $5.4 million to reserve, inclusive of these budgeted transfers, interest earned, and allocating 2021 operating surpluses from last year. So with that, administration does have two, in addition to approving the statements, administration is recommending 2 additional transfers be approved by council. The first is to transfer the small $23,000 utility surplus to the utility reserve. The second is to draw approximately 876,000 from the financial stabilization reserve to cover off the deficit in the municipal operations budget. This draw would account for the financial stabilization reserve being decreased from 2.9 million to approximately 2 million. That concludes administration's report. At this point, I'll turn the floor back to council. Administration will be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Blanco. Appreciate that overview. Very thorough as outlined in the report, and always good to hear it in person. As any question you may have, questions from council, Mr. DeBlanco or Ms. Zutz, before we go on to the recommendations. I can't see you on the screen, Sam or Kat. Do you have any questions at this point?
No, Mayor.
And no questions from me.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Seeing no questions from council, before I move to the recommendations, Mr. Mujia, my understanding is that a councillor can move all three at the same time or one individually. Is that correct? Depends on what the councillor who proceeds decides to do, or we do all three or do them individually.
Mr. Mayor, council can move these all together, or if any member of council would like to see them separated, they could make that request. And with consensus of council, we could separate them and vote on them individually. But they are available and ready to be voted on in one go if that's the will of council.
Okay, having said that, no one from council suggested me beforehand about doing individual recommendations, so I'll ask if a member of council willing to move all three at the same time. Councillor Miller, Ashley?
Yes, I will move all three. Do I have to read them all out?
Yes, please.
Okay.
In the money bill, let's read.
Why
all
did I
three.
sign up for this?
Sure.
Okay. So I move that 2022 audited consolidated financial statements, external presenter. I didn't need to read that, did I?
Okay.
Okay, that the 2022 audited financial statements are, do I need to read this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm having a night here.
It's okay. How they had you on having a bad
Mm.
night for procedures. You go ahead.
As set out in attachment 1 of the April 25th, 2023, 2022 audited financial statements report be approved. That a draw to cover the 2022 net municipal operating deficit in the amount of $875,558 from the financial stabilization reserve be approved, and that the transfer of the 2022 net utility operating surplus in the amount of $22,693 to the utility reserve be approved.
Thank you, Counselor. Madam Clerk, if I can ask a quick question. On the first motion, it says, as set out in attachment 1 of the April 25th, 2023, should that say council meeting or something there? Are we missing a word possibly? I didn't notice it before, but now that I read it out loud, I'm just wondering.
It's saying that set out in attachment 1 of today's date. And then the report title is 2022 audited
Okay.
financial statements
Okay.
report. That is the report title. So that's correct, but it is a little confusing with 2023 and 2022.
Well, when I
So-
read it, it made sense. When I hear it out loud, okay, I thought that's the question. If you're comfortable with it, you are too, Councilor Miller. Discussion on the motion from members of council on the three recommendations on this report. Seeing none, council, would you please vote on the motions before you on the financial statements for 2022? Councilor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor McGough Swain.
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, Ms. Zutz, for your attendance this evening. Much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Blanco. We'll move on to our next part of the agenda this evening, which is now moving into 8.2, motion following notice, Councillor Tessier, RV parking. In a moment, council will be on the screen. I'll ask you to move your motion and then speak to it, please. Councillor Tessier, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that by the end of May 2023, administration prepare a report on possible amendments to the traffic safety bylaw to provide more flexible provisions for parking recreational vehicles. I'll just speak to it at this time, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so this was brought up from a resident that came in with a concern from our new traffic safety bylaw. And, I give all the props to the resident reading through their bylaw and trying to follow the bylaw correctly. So he's not in contradiction of what we're actually putting out forward. So to me, I think this is a good idea to do something that's not so reactive, and we're more proactive than reactive when it comes to this bylaw. We all know when we make new bylaws, sometimes there's unintended consequences, and we're already being told that there's going to be a consequence from this bylaw. I think for us to just hear what would be the other possible options would be a good start for the community, instead of sending something out that we already know could be potentially an issue. I don't think that's the route we should be going. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll reserve my comments at the very end. I'll ask comments from councillors first before I speak at the end there. I see Councillor Monkow Swain has his hand up first, followed by Councilman Euchre. Councillor Monkow Swain, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nguyen, coming in and very eloquently explaining the challenge. The struggle that I have with this motion specifically is I'm not sure exactly what we're asking administration to do. I don't think it's clear in this. I think the way that I read the bylaw now is that and has been pointed out is that they if a resident can get permission from a resident to park there for a short term, then that is allowable. And so, you know, the whole reason why we implemented this was to stop folks parking RVs for a few days and then moving it to a different neighborhood and moving it to a different neighborhood. So for me, like, I understand what you're asking them to come back and provide more flexible, but it seems to be pretty narrow scope of what we're actually asking, because where this issue is going to be is in a cul-de-sac. And I sympathize with the resident there, but if we changed it, if administration came back and recommended a change, then that is going to allow folks to park RVs throughout Beaumont, and so that's also another unintended consequence, which is a big part of the bylaw. So, for me, I'm not quite there, Tessier. I think I think this is a case of we've agreed to a bylaw, as we always do. We put it in for a period of time, and if there are issues and challenges that come with it, then we can look to adjust it. But I personally would be interested in seeing how the summer goes. I would hope that we would and I know our municipal enforcement folks use education first around these sorts of things and appreciate that. So I think if we went back and changed it, then there could be some more unintended consequences, and all we're doing is just creating more work for administration throughout. So I'm not quite there yet. I'll be interested to hear what other councillors say, but my personal opinion would be to vote against this. Let this move through. See if where those challenges are. See if there are solutions there with neighbors to see if they're okay to park that RV there for a short period of time before moving it out of town. And if we see multiple challenges, then like we do with every other bylaw, we'll make the appropriate changes. So I'll leave my comments there for now, Mayor. But at this time, I don't support this. I think that we passed the bylaw, and I think while it definitely looks like it's going to inconvenience the residents, and I sympathize with that, I think that this bylaw is kind of in the greater good for all of Beaumont when you look at it from a big picture. So I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor, and I'll see what others have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilman Euchre. Steve, you have the floor next.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And am I on here? Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Tessier, for putting this motion forward. So as you said, there was the resident came forward with looking proactively at what's going to come into effect June 1, 2023, pointing out the cul-de-sacs providing a problem and creating a situation that he discussed with municipal enforcement ahead of time as well, that could have perhaps maybe an opportunity was lost in that conversation to, de-escalate the situation or make other suggestions to the resident that wouldn't have resulted from that resident coming to council. The resident was directed to come to council, and here we are. So, we don't know what we don't know. We've made changes to a bylaw, and have how many cul-de-sacs in Beaumont. I tried to start counting them and then lost count after 20. We have all of these situations in Beaumont that we've created. And what we don't know is how much work is going to be generated from the complaints that we get to ME if we don't make a change here tonight versus the work that's going to be created in situations where the residents may move their truck RV combos around the municipality trying to dodge this bylaw. So, we know we had that problem in the past where folks move around the municipality. So that's where the adjoining comes from. The next challenge is obtaining permission on city-owned spaces. So what is not also clear in the bylaw that, looking at more flexible provisions for parking recreational vehicles could provide some clarity on is, if I want to park my truck RV combo in front of city-owned land, who, how, and when do I seek that permission as a resident? Or is there implied consent to park your RV there? You know, that clarity isn't there. If this motion was moved forward, you know, there may be an opportunity to provide more flexible provisions for the parking of RV vehicles and an opportunity for clarity. And the third piece here is that after reflecting on the obtained consent to park your vehicle from a neighbor, that opens a big can of worms for me, because there's an age-old conversation that happens around the parking stall in front of your home, and there's an implied thought from people that you should have the first right to park in front of your house. So what we know is that's not the case. And what we know is that I can go and park in front of someone's house the same way they can go and park in front of my house, as long as it meets the traffic safety bylaw. What we're doing here by gaining approval or needing to go and gain approval from a neighbor or a resident to park your RV there, you know, I think we're opening a can of worms that could start this, you know, obtain approval to park where in the municipality. I think we're opening ourselves up for that conversation to happen. So anyway, so I will support this motion tonight. The only other thing I could think of would potentially be a friendly amendment to remove the whole phrasing on the adjoining part. But to Councillor Monkoff-Swain's point, you know, if we passed that amendment tonight, or if I made the friendly amendment and it did pass tonight, what are the unintended consequences of that? So what I'm trying to figure, or what I'm proposing here, and by supporting this bylaw, is getting some information and some options. That's all this is about, is information and options. And information and options has consistently been supported by most councillors throughout the terms that I've been a part of. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, I believe your hand is up remotely, so you have the floor now, Kat.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I think we're talking here about mainly cul-de-sacs. I don't know, would there be an opportunity to just add a provision specific to cul-de-sacs? I don't know if that then ends up having unintended consequences, as we've spoken about, but potentially to have something a little bit more specific to those areas that will have those specific parking issues. I don't know if maybe someone from administration could speak to that, or.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor McCook. I think if this motion passes, administration would really have to look long and hard at all of those options. What would it look like to have a model similar to what we have in the older bylaw, where you can essentially park your RV in any legal parking spot? Could we do a provision specific to cul-de-sacs? That gets a little dicey, but it is something we would look at. So if this motion does go forward, administration would look at whatever options are available and try and provide some options. The only thing that I caution is that when we went out to public engagement, we did have over 700 participants in the online survey. And during the public engagement, 70% of respondents liked the provisions as they were in the new bylaw, or 20% of them felt they were not strict enough. So I think this is going to be a very delicate, tricky balance to strike. And I certainly don't envy council. Unfortunately, I think this is one of those situations where whatever option you choose, there's going to be some people who are not going to be on board. You know, that's maybe more than you asked for, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of context and color.
No, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that was part of my concern was, I think, from my understanding, some of the amendments for this bylaw, and and us kind of redoing the bylaw was because we had a lot of issues with RV parking around the city and whatnot. And my only concern is that if we start loosening some of these things, then to Councillor Monkoff-Swain's point, what does that kind of do down the road? Does that inadvertently affect other residents? And do we kind of then go backwards and go back to what we originally had with, which kind of negates us doing it in the first place and putting in some of these things. So I don't disagree that more information is not a bad thing. Hopefully is end of May enough time for administration to go back and consider this?
We're facing some difficult constraints here because of the public communications and education piece that accompanies this bylaw. So right now we have a comms plan to get out in front of the bylaw, which does take effect June 1st. So I think we really have no choice if we want, unless we want to amend the effective date of the bylaw, which I don't suspect would be top of mind for council. So we're just trying to work with some challenging constraints that we're just unfortunately faced with due to lack of time.
Right. Okay. Thank you. As I said, I'm always keen for more information. I'm still on the fence about this one just because I also think that we could give it a chance and give it an opportunity and see what comes of it. And if residents are encountering a lot of issues, then perhaps that would be the time to make some amendments. But yeah, I'm still on the fence about this one for now. As Sandy said, this is a difficult decision, as I appreciate the resident coming forward regarding this, but would like to almost see it play out a little bit and see what goes on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I will now speak myself, saying the first round of comments is over. I will be voting against this motion, and I'll explain why in a briefly here. It's mostly to do with governance and procedure. I do believe the resident came forward in good faith, thinking he may be in violation of the bylaw going forward based on the way he read it. He came forward with a concern. I get that. The bylaw's not even in effect yet. And this motion says, come to council with a concern, one person out of 22,000, and we'll change the bylaw because one concern was raised on a non-effective bylaw yet. So his concern is on record. We're aware of it. Bylaw has to come into force first. We have to give the bylaw a chance to be observed by all of our residents to address any further concerns residents may have, and then do a report or request a report of all concerns raised by our residents once the bylaw is in force. To ask our administration to spend time and money and effort to do a report now on a non-effective bylaw based on one person's concern, and then ask them at the end of the summer, after the bylaw has been enforced for 3 or 4 months, and more residents say, this is a concern, that's a concern, and they come to us and administration as well, and we then have other concerns we want to revisit, then let administration do one report with all the concerns raised by the residents over a reasonable period of time, to do a report now before the bylaw is effective, and then potentially do another report down the road once other residents have a chance to talk to us about the bylaw. To me, is wasting time. It's not good governance, and we expect administration to be efficient and streamlined. This creates additional work for no reason, in my opinion, because we haven't had a chance, the bylaw is even effective yet. And it may only be one concern that needs to be raised, and maybe more concerns. We don't know that yet. We're predicting the future here, and I don't want to waste administration's time and effort on doing dual work when we need it. The bylaw's not even in effect yet. You have to give the bylaw a chance to be observed by our residents to see if the other things may have been overlooked or not interpreted properly. So that's my opinion on this particular bylaw this evening, so I will not be supporting it. That concludes round 1 of questions. I see Councilor Monkoff-Swain, your hand is up. So we'll start round 2 with yourself. And then Councilor Tessier, I'll come back to you for final comments. Okay, it is your motion, okay? So Councilor Monkoff-Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. Really good discussion. And I just speak to a couple of points that have been made so far. Councillor Van Newkirk talked about, looking at adding more flexibility around RV parking. I mean, the whole reason why we put this in is because our residents have identified concerns with that, right? And so we, as Sandy pointed out, we went out, we asked 700 people. We all saw the results of the engagement, and for the most part, it was well supported what we got in here. So I agree with your governance concerns around this bill. I don't like the fact that we went out and asked a whole bunch of people, we did a survey, and then we just change our mind on the fly. The second point around asking for more information, as Steve tried to allude to with me, and yes, I generally have supported that, but not 2 days after we've passed the bylaw. Like it's not even implemented yet. So again, I don't support this, the motion that's in front of us here. I think let's go through a year and see what comes out. My biggest concern is that if administration goes through this, we're not going to be able to communicate to the public in time about the changes to the bylaw that's going to impact them coming up. So then we lose a whole summer because we can't implement it. If we're going back to the drawing board, we're not going to be able to implement it this summer. And I mean, there's RVs that are going to be ready, getting ready right away here. So for me, you know, we all supported this bylaw at the time. It made sense. Let's go through the year, see how it is, and let's come back and get some feedback on it. So yeah, I encourage other folks to everyone else on council. Obviously, there are two strong votes here, yes, but I'll remind folks that 3-3 and the motion is defeated here. So just need one more and the motion defeats. So I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. See no further question. I'll have one last comment, and then I'll go to Councillor Tessier for wrap up. I want to preface, or it's not preface, remind council that this resident's concern, we are aware of it. It will not go away if we wait the summer, at least the summer, in my opinion, to the fall, to give our residents a chance to get adjusted to the new bylaw, to see if additional cul-de-sac concerns are raised. If none are raised, then you're looking at doing a bunch of work for one person. That's not how governance is supposed to work. If there's more concerns raised over the course of the few months of the bylaw, then council will listen to those concerns, address them with administration, and make informed options at a later time with one report, in my opinion, that takes into account the first season of the new bylaw. That will affect a few RV owners. Most RV owners in Beaumont are very law-abiding, and they conform the current bylaw. For the new bylaw, it's the ones that are not conforming that this bylaw is designed to address. So we need to give the bylaw a chance to work and do its work. As Councilman Swain said, we supported this bylaw recently, and I support the bylaw until we have reason to change it. In one person's opinion, even though he may be correct, it's fine. We can come back to him at a later time once we have a chance for other residents to observe the bylaw and be effective. So I'll be voting no. Seeing no further questions, I'll ask Councillor Tessier for a final comment, and then we will call for the vote. Councillor Tessier, you have the floor.
Thanks for the good conversation. You know, when someone comes in here and points out a known issue from the bylaw that hasn't even started and then goes through the proper channels, like talking to municipal enforcement, talking to admin, and then being told to come here, and then we're not even going to vote yes to actually getting more options, knowing that it's going to be potentially a problem, I think is a lapse in judgment. We're asking for options. If it becomes a massive issue, then we're going to have this conversation again in the summer when we can at least see what our other options are. Right now, there is no option. If you go talk to your neighbor, he or she's like, no, not happening. Or you live in 0 lot lines and you got nowhere else to park. That corner lot is going to be a hot commodity on top of vehicles. I don't think we should say no to knowing more options and what that looks like, whether it's closer to the old bylaw or a new bylaw. I just think we should be voting yes for this, and I know we need the 4. So I'm just pushing for that, Mayor. So thank you.
Okay, that's a final comment, but Councilman, you wish to speak, so I'll accommodate. Please proceed, Ashley.
Yeah, I apologize. This was a tough one for me, just listening to everybody's conversations. And one thing I do want to highlight is that I don't think the notice of motion came from the intention to create a whole bunch of more work for administration. I don't think anyone's ever trying to do that, and I understand the process. And I want to be respectful of that as well, that in my decision on the way I vote has, obviously I do not want to create more work for anybody, but I do see, as we've discussed in the past, we reserve the right to change our minds. Sometimes things come out of the woodworks that do give us different, outlooks on things. And I think it's important to be diligent in our thought process on thinking of those. So even though, yes, we have discussed this bylaw and we saw fit for it to move ahead as is, sometimes there are things that come up and we do need to take those into consideration that there may be a better way. So I have no problem going forward to evaluate different possible amendments and options at this point. We haven't voted on anything to change it at this point, and I see nothing wrong with exploring those options. And as I said, I want to highlight that the intention is not to cause more work for anybody, but I feel like it's a good move to look at things beforehand, before we get to that point. So I will be voting in favor of this, and thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no further discussion on the motion. At this point, I will ask council to vote on the notice of motion before you. Councilor McGough-Swain, I believe you're voting no from previous statement.
I am opposed.
Thank you. Councilor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor, Mayor.
That carries 4-2 in favor. Councilor McGough-Swain and Mayor Daniluk were in opposition to the motion. Thank you, council. Next, our agenda is 8.3 motion following notice. Councilor McCook, vehicle noise. Councilor McCook, I'm not sure if you can see the screen from your end there. Can you see it? And when you're ready, please make your motion.
I can, thank you. My motion is that prior to the 2024 budget deliberations, administration prepare a report on options for amendments to the traffic safety bylaw to address loud vehicle noise, and that the report include information on implementing decibel limit restrictions and any additional equipment and or resources that would be needed. This motion is stemming from a few concerns I've heard regarding extremely loud vehicles, especially those who like to rev their engines on the side or the range roads, and often late at night. And speaking with Chief Melvin, it's my understanding that in order to really be able to ticket these people once caught, we would need to be able to speak to and have decibel limits to really make it enforceable. I also recognize that this is a difficult issue to address, as people have to be caught in the act. However, there are numerous surrounding municipalities that have implemented the decibel limit restrictions, which gives them a stronger tool to be able to ticket individuals who are continuously causing loud disturbances with their vehicles. I believe that with the timing of this report and with the ask that the report include any additional resources that would be required, it'll give us a good idea as to whether this is something that council is looking to invest in, as it will inevitably require equipment and potentially additional resources, as we know our MEs are quite busy. It also allows us to review prior to budget, which gives protective services some time as well to come back with some data regarding the complaints around this particular issue. I've encouraged the residents who've come to me to continue to call municipal enforcement to place complaints, so the numbers are better tracked and can more accurately reflect the issues. And I know other councillors have had some similar complaints regarding vehicle noise. So I would encourage that if anyone comes to you, to also ask them to call ME and register the complaint. So our protective services have that data. So we have the most up-to-date data. In the end, this report will just give us additional information to make an informed decision prior to making any amendments. And in us considering the decibel limit, it aligns also with numerous other jurisdictions who are doing the same to combat the issue. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor McCook. Appreciate that. Questions from council for the motion before you? I believe Councilor McGough-Swain has left our meeting, so it's just Councilor McCook remotely and just the four of us in the room here. Councilor Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor, followed by Councilor Tessier.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councilor McCook for bringing it forward. And I'm very much like the wording and or resources that would be needed, because it is, as you said in your preamble, quite a multi-pronged approach to vehicle noise, because it's usually associated with speeding as well. So I'll support this motion tonight that looks for more information and identifies equipment and additional resources that would be required. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councilor. Councilor Tessier. Renee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilor McCook, for bringing this forward. I've also got a bunch of texts or emails from different residents asking the same thing. So looking forward to supporting this and seeing the options that come back from it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I also believe this is a good motion. We're asking of a report with options before something becomes law. That's a good thing. I appreciate bringing it forward, Councilor Cook. Any further comments from questions from councillors? Seeing none, councillors, I'll ask you to vote on the motion before you and remind you there's only 5 of us now voting, not 6. Would you please vote? Councilor Cook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Council, that carries unanimously, 5-0. Appreciate that. Next on our agenda, we go into 9.1 bylaw 1030-23, 2023 property tax and supplementary property tax bylaw. Mr. DeBlanco, I believe you're presenting this evening. Your mic is on, sir.
Hello again. Before council this evening is a report seeking 3 readings of the 2023 property tax bylaw. At the April 11th council meeting, council approved the municipal operating budget, which includes a 4.9% property tax levy increase. And this is subject to adjustments based on finalized property assessments. Since we have those assessments now, the 2023 property tax and supplementary property tax bylaw has been prepared based on the budget. This property tax bylaw will achieve 25 million or 25.4 million approximately in municipal tax revenue, approximately 9 million in requisition tax revenue. And although the blended levy, which is net of growth, has increased 4.9, the impact of the increase will vary between properties. This depends on several factors, including assessment value changes due to inflation. Inflation is approximately 7% in our assessment base. While these assessment changes did not affect the overall budget, they cause tax shifting between properties and property types. I'll remind council that our current property tax policy states that council has the ability to manipulate the ratio between res and non-res, and there's an appropriate time to do that, which would be after this bylaw gets passed. But that's just a piece of information to keep on council's mind that that is a lever that is available. The approval of this bylaw will allow the city to levy municipal taxes in the amounts I stated, and they include an estimate for annex properties that were formerly in Leduc County, as well as an estimate for supplemental taxes and adjustments. Upon approval of this bylaw, the document will be made public by posting on the city's website. With that, I'll turn the floor back to council, and administration will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Appreciate that. Questions from council? I am seeing none. Councilman Cook, sorry, do you have your hand up? I can't. No, you don't. That's fine. Thank you. Appreciate that. So with that is going to my report here. Hang on a moment. Oh, okay. Is the member of council willing to move? I believe we require all 3 readings this evening, same procedure and consideration. Got that one nailed down tonight. Member of council willing to move first reading? Councilman Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll move that bylaw 1030-23, the 2023 property tax and supplementary property tax be given first reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Council, would you please vote on first reading? Councilor Cook?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries 5-0. Member of council willing to move second reading? Councilor Miller?
Sure. I move that bylaw 1030-23 be given second reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Members of council? Seeing none. Council, would you please vote on second reading? Councilor McCook?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries 5-0 as well. Now we move into consideration. Is there a member of council willing to move consideration for third reading? In fact, that'll be me. I move that the bylaw 1030-23 be considered for third reading. Thank you. Discussion on the motion, council? Seeing none, council, would you please vote on consideration for third reading? Councilor McCook?
In favor.
Thank you. It also carries 5-0. Member of council willing to move third reading of the proposed bylaw? Councilor Miller? Oh.
I move the bylaw 1030-23 be given third reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion from members of council? Seeing none, council, would you please vote on third reading of the bylaw? Councilor McCook?
In favor.
Thank you, council, and that also carries 5-0. Thank you. Appreciate that. Moving on to our next item on the agenda is 9.2 bylaw 1029-23A bylaw to amend the 2023 fees and charges bylaw. Mr. DeBlanc, oh, sorry, Ms. Bujaya, did I miss something?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that was passed via consent, so we can move on to item 10 now.
Oh, yes, it was. Sorry, I didn't put that down on my notes. I apologize. We are now into section 10.1, Councillor McCook and Councillor Miller inquiry response that was already taken care of by information. Any additional councillor inquiries, responses, or reports this evening? Councillor Van Newkirk, Steve?
Yes, I have a councillor inquiry this evening.
Please proceed.
Please provide an update on the schedule for cleanup this spring related to the ongoing broadband installation work and provide the details on how residents can get more information or address any cleanup or property issues with the Alberta broadband networks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Are there any further councillor inquiries this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda number 11. Normally we break at 7:30 for a break, but this evening we're going to plow right through. I see no concerns with that from anybody. So we will go on, proceed now with CEO update. Mr. Schwartz, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Daniluk, the rest of council and the members of the public. I got a few items here to provide. No pictures. Sorry. So from Protective Services, we've hired 2 new CPO 01 officers. We've also hired the summer term weed inspector. It starts on May 1st. We had 4 of our firefighters attend Northern Heat Conference in Peace River from May 3rd to the 6th. So we will have. They'll participate in live fire training, conference seminars, and hands-on training while in attendance. So those are 4 of our volunteers. From Recreation, we are doing a pilot drop-in program for the Arch, the Arch, which is a climbing wall. So Wednesdays starting May 3rd from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Sundays starting May 7th from 1 till 4. And all BSRC membership holders, all punch passes, all daily drop-ins can use take part in the pilot program, get them interested in falling off of that wall. Every time I walk by there, I see these kids that are not even old enough to walk and they're at the top. And I just, yeah, like I would never, you couldn't see me up there. Communications, social development, community circle thrift store grand opening is held April 19th. There are various members of council there, the thrift store and the food bank board and the public were present. On April 14th, Deputy Mayor Stephen Van Newkirk presented the 2023 Philip Key Un-O Volunteer Awards to community income tax volunteers Janice Schatz and Frederick Mampio and youth volunteer Kyron Bates. We applaud the volunteers. This community has lots. Economic development and planning. The economic development team is right now is participating in the Edmonton Global Hydrogen Conference. I believe our mayor was there today as well. And on Friday, the AMT campus for law enforcement and transportation training moved to the project development phase. Sorry, it was announced by the province. It is now in the project development phase of the unsolicited bid proposal. This campus, which has been the had to keep this under wraps, is the 160 acres in the southeast portion of our city. It's supported by multiple industry agencies, including the Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Public Safety and Emergency Services, Ministry of Transportation and Economic Corridors, Edmonton Police Services, the RCMP, of course, the Alberta Motor Transportation Association is the anchor tenant. City of Beaumont is also playing a role and has been for the last 3 years in bringing this to fruition. And there are a number of other agencies that are also connected to the campus. I spent a couple of days last week with the board and the executive of AMTA, and I can tell you they are very well connected, much more connected than I thought they were, much more organized than I thought they were. And the potential for this campus is a lot bigger than even I thought it was. So more information to follow. And we are looking at, we're continually doing communications and we will keep everybody in the loop as we learn more. Positive, very positive in the infrastructure. We have a new solid waste contract, which will be awarded to GFL and our existing provider E360. This month it'll be awarded. That we have a contract that's signed. The transition will be September 1st. This is a 6-year contract with an option of two 2-year renewals. Specific details on the contract and the added value to the city will follow later this week, but some benefits that leap out at us right off the bat is that they're going to be using brand new collection vehicles, and these vehicles run on natural gas, which will reduce Beaumont's carbon footprint and eliminate the impact of rising diesel fuel prices as well. But it's a good example of our environmental responsibility. They're providing a $25,000 annual charitable donation to be directed at the city's discretion. They're also providing free of charge the required porta potties, which in a year for us for events and sports fields can equal up to $30,000. So that's a direct savings right off the bat. Overall, in the first 6 years, the contract will see a $3.3 million savings over the expected life of the operating contract. And of course, that's $3.3 million on operating expenses. There's other expenses that are still involved for us, like capital for the bins and such like that. But it's a very good news story. And the most exciting part of the evening, we are going to be welcoming our municipal intern on May 8th. She'll be working with LLNS and some exciting projects, including supporting the review of council policies. She'll have the opportunity to attend council, so you'll be able to get a chance to meet her. We're really excited. We've been very lucky with the municipal interns that we have had working for us, and they've gone on to do just great things, but they come with so much energy and so much willingness to learn and be part, and the organization embraces them. So give credit to Sandy and her group for going through the process of getting Grace to come and join us. And that's what I had for my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Any questions for our CEO on his report? See none, move on to notice of the motion on any NOMs this evening from any members of council to be brought forward. Councilman Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have a notice of motion to bring forward here tonight. Yeah, no problem.
Here we go.
At the May 9th, 2023 council meeting, I will move that before the commencement of the 2024 budget deliberations, administration provide a report outlining options, timing, cost, and any other considerations related to installing a pathway and bridge to connect with the pathway directly west of 63rd Street, west across LeBlanc Canal to the BSRC Center parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm looking forward to that one too. Good topic to bring forward. Thank you. Any other notice in the motion this evening? Seeing none, we don't have a closed session this evening, so I just have some following comments before we wrap up the meeting this evening. As our CEO Schwartz mentioned, I was at the Hydrogen Conference a bit today. I'm going this afternoon tomorrow to meet people and talk about Beaumont with various people from around the world who are looking at hydrogen. And a big announcement, it was this past week, as we're all very much aware, we've been waiting for so long. It finally came. Government of Alberta made the announcement on the Innovation Park here in Beaumont. We did a social media post of the city. I shared one of myself, and many of you saw it. A lot of positive uptake in the community. I've been talking about nothing else since then, since Friday. Huge uptake in the community on this one. I made it very clear too that Ella was a big part of all this. And my newspaper article that's coming Friday will emphasize the importance that Ella played in this. If it wasn't Ella, there wouldn't be 10 gig. Having Ella, we wouldn't have AMTA and the Innovation Park and the policing campus. So Ella played a very critical part in that, but council administration carried the ball throughout the last several years. Our MLA, Rutherford, was hugely instrumental, the government of Alberta, in getting our announcement put forward and moving things along as well too. So we owe him a debt of gratitude as well. And it's very, very exciting, the Innovation Park going forward. So more information will be coming on about how it's going to affect Beaumont in terms of investment and how it affects our tax base and so on into the future. More information will come that down the road when we can. And we'll be announcing hopefully soon some artist renderings of what the building could look like once some final design things get done. So it's a very exciting time to be in Beaumont. And today I did a photograph with the school boards on the new high school site. We're doing a news release tomorrow announcing our new high school site here in Beaumont for the joint high school for Black Gold and Star Catholic. It's coming out tomorrow as well too. So it's been a busy couple of weeks, a busy couple of months for Beaumont, for council and administration especially, but it's been a very exciting time to be part of council and part of administration. So we are making some significant changes to Beaumont, all for very much the positive. So say it loud and say it proud when it comes to AMTA and the policing campus here in Beaumont. It's going to lead to a lot of amazing things for us in our community. So with that, Seeing no further comments, concerns, or questions from anybody, administration or council, I want to thank this evening, and we are adjourned at 7:34.